Okay, so we are officially opening our lines and we will start accepting people to join us at the session. We'll give people, about a minute or so to join the session so we can have more of our audience. I would also like to notice that this session is being recorded, so if anyone is interested to either share or check it afterwards, it will be available on our social media. So again, we'll give it a minute or so just to make sure that we have some more people joining us this morning here in California. I really want to thank our speakers, participants for today's session. Thank you, Shlomi Kaufman, for being with us. Really appreciating your time. Shlomi Kaufman, Consul General of Israel to the Pacific Northwest. Hi, Shlomi, good morning.
Good morning, Sharon. Good to see you all. Thank you for having me.
Great. I would also like to thank Maya Vadi Shoshani. She's the Director for Business Development by the Bird Foundation here in the West Coast. Hi, Maya.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good evening in Israel.
Fantastic. We also have with us two representatives of companies from here, from the West Coast, that participated in the process and also won some of the Bird Foundation grants. Thank you, David, for being with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Good morning, good evening.
And we also have Naya with us. Thank you, Naya, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for everyone who's listening.
Okay, fantastic. So before we are going to dive into our session of discussion today, I would like to mention some house cleaning for this session. We are recording it. It will be available later on our social media. So make sure that you can watch it also afterwards. You can go back to the presentations and check all the details. We are expecting your questions, so don't be shy. Please join us with a Q&A. We have a chat box. You can type your questions over there, and we will make sure to answer them at the end of the presentations. There's a lot of information going to be presented to you today, so make sure you're taking notes for this session. So for those who don't know me, my name is Sharon Vanek. I'm the Executive Director of the California-Israel Chamber of Commerce. We are a non-profit organization, been around since the 90s, and really our mission is to provide opportunities for different industry stakeholders to meet their counterpart. As part of our activities, we also have educational programs. We have networking events, beach events, and we are very proud in our collaboration with the government of Israel, working with the consulate closely. We are also very happy to collaborate for many years with the Bird Foundation, and shouldn't forget also, of course, working with the community of innovators, startups, investors, and so on and so forth. So with no further ado, I'd like to start by introducing again Shlomi Kaufman, Consul General of Israel to the Pacific Northwest, to tell us a little bit about their support of the community. Shlomi.
Sharon, thank you so much. Good morning here on the West Coast. Good evening in Israel. Thank you for this fantastic opportunity in collaboration with the CACC and the Bird Foundation. You both, Sharon, you in CACC, and Maya with Bird Foundation, you exactly are the partners, perfect partners we need to work with, and we have here on the ground that can collaborate and bring companies and bring more cooperation between Israel and California and Israel and the United States. Both industries, whether in tech or in energy or in any other field, have so much to offer to each other. So the more forums we have to bring companies together to find opportunities like the one that we're going to hear later here today, is the perfect, is a goal that serves everyone. It's a win-win situation. We are the council that cover the Pacific Northwest, meaning from pretty much here all the way to Alaska and Idaho and Montana, and in charge of representing Israel, building, telling Israel stories, making sure that Israeli companies and companies from that region have an access to markets and to various opportunities. We're working with the governments, with state governments, working with the community on the ground, and really trying to promote the relationship and the connections between Israel and California, and Israel in this region, and naturally here in California, we work with the CICC. The achievements and the numbers of collaboration are enormous and very impressive. Just in the past 17 years, just in California, companies invested $22 billion in Israeli companies. There are over 100 Israeli companies placed here, and there are so many companies from California present in Israel. But there is more to do, and we're here to listen what are the opportunities that Bird Foundation and the Bird Energy Call for Proposal is going to bring. I want to thank you for being here, for taking the time. And Sharon and Maya and David and Ayas, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for what you're doing. So let's enjoy the session and listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shlomi, for that introduction. And I would like to quickly move to Maya, who is going to give us some background information about the Bird Foundation for those of you who are not familiar with their work, with some highlights on, of course, Bird Energy, and all the details that you need to know about the current call for companies. What is the focus? What kind of companies can submit their proposal? And of course, not less important, how all of us can help you. Maya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be here. It's the time of year again to talk about Bird Energy. Before that, my name is Maya Vardi-Shoshani. I'm the West Coast Director for the Bird Foundation. And I'd like to share my presentation. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So for those of you who are not familiar of Bird, I will give a brief overview of the Bird Foundation, and then I'll dive into Bird Energy. So I'm based in California. I'm located in the Silicon Valley, but I'm responsible for the entire West Coast. Bird is actually an acronym for Binational Industrial that was established by the US and Israeli governments back in the 70s, in 1977, to support and to promote innovation and collaboration in any technology sector. We use an endowment that both governments gave us of $110 million. We use that for our general call for proposals, and we fund joint R&D projects between American and Israeli companies. Everything we do is for mutual benefit of the US and Israel. Before we go into our process, I wanted to show you who is on our board of governors, which is like a board of directors, and who is deciding which projects to award and to fund. So it is represented by senior officials from both governments with two co-chairs, the Associate Director for Innovation and Industry Services for NIST from the Department of Commerce, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and the Israeli Chief Scientist, who is the chairman of the Israeli Innovation Authority. The other governors are from the State Department and the Treasury, and similar government ministries from the Israeli side, the Ministry of Economy and Industry and the Ministry of Finance. For the sector-specific programs, we have an executive committee that decides which projects to award. And for the bird energy program, which we will discuss today, the stakeholders are the DOE, the Department of Energy, the Israeli Ministry of Energy, and the Israeli Innovation Authority. So a big part of what we do is try to help you find strategic partners. So we are kind of like matchmakers, and we facilitate introductions. So if you're listening in today and you are not already working with an Israeli partner, or if you're an Israeli company and you don't have an American partner, reach out to us. We help introduce companies to each other. And then if those matches turn into projects and they apply to us and submit a proposal, we can potentially fund up to 50% of their combined R&D project budget, up to $1 million for the bird energy projects. And in some cases, for general call for proposals, we can, for exceptional proposal, fund up to $1.5 million. So as I said, we don't fund companies, we fund projects, and we provide non-dilutive matching funds to American and Israeli partners. We don't take any equity or IP rights, and we fund 50% of the R&D budgets of both partners. It is divided between the two partners according to the work share. Each partner should do a significant part of the work, of the tasks and innovation. And we can allow up to 30%, 70% to one of the partners. And both of them will receive a relative match from BIRD to cover 50% of the R&D expenses. In the development part of the project, we look at it at the D in the broadest sense possible. We try to help them be successful and commercialize the project, bring it to market. So we include also initial stages of sales and marketing, as well as IP registration. We get repayments as royalties only if the project generates revenue, which helps keep our fund sustainable, but repayments are capped and of course non-dilutive. And if the project is not successful and there are no sales, there is no repayment at all, and it becomes a grant. And it is termed a recoverable grant. And what is very important to say is that in the case of bird energy, it's not just between two companies. As you can see in this slide, there are two companies, and this is relevant for our general call for proposals. For bird energy, we can allow a company and a research institute or a university. So this is exceptional for the bird energy program. But at least one of the partners need to be a commercial entity. If you look at our investments in recent years, you can see that we are agnostic to sector. We invest in any innovative technology, excluding military-specific applications. We don't fund defense projects, but we do have a Homeland Security program. The deadline just passed. The next one will be next year. So we've been quite successful over the years. From that original endowment, we managed to grant over $370 million and approved more than 1,000 projects. We are very proud of the fact that our activities generated about $10 billion directly and indirectly from projects we funded. And what does that $10 billion mean? That there are other metrics that we look at just than sales and repayments. We look at the national level benefits, at the job created, capital raised, merger and acquisitions, export, Israeli companies setting up operations in the US, and US companies opening offices and R&D centers in Israel. So there is a big impact for activity of the fund. We issue a general call for proposals from that original endowment twice a year, every March and September. You can see here the dates of the current call for proposals. The decisions will be coming up next month in June. And if companies are interested in applying there, the next cycle will be at the beginning of September, and the dates will be published on our website soon. In this call, we invite partners, two companies, one from US and one from Israel, to submit proposals for the development of innovative technologies and an open list of topics that includes also clean tech and environment, and water technologies. And there's a list of technologies mentioned in the call. Companies, of course, are invited to submit proposals here. The project should demonstrate significant commercial potential. We call companies to reach out to us if they're interested. Today, I'm here to talk about the upcoming call for proposals for the Bird Energy program. So this is the most important slide. Bird Energy is a sector-specific program that was launched in 2009 through the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, and has funded until now 60 cooperative Israel-US clean energy projects for a total government investment of approximately $47.5 million and approximately $62 million in fund matched by private sector. This program is the implementation of a cooperation agreement between the US Department of Energy, the Israeli Ministry of Energy, joined with the Israeli Innovation Authority, and it is managed by the Bird Foundation. We are looking for development, research and development in sectors that benefit and interest both the United States and Israel, with a focus on commercializing sustainable energy technologies that improve economic competitiveness, create jobs, and increase energy securities. We follow the same rules and procedures of Bird, the general call for proposals. And the topics include renewable energy, energy efficiency, natural gas, energy, water technologies. This cycle, we added innovation that scales up carbon-free technologies and reduces carbon emissions. And innovation in natural gas and other associated technologies that reduces climate impact. If you are not sure about eligibility, I recommend that you talk to us, reach out to us, and we will try to find out, answer your questions. And if we're not sure, we will reach out to the stakeholders and ask if this is something that can be funded through Bird Energy. And if not, you can always submit to the general call for proposals. Over the last 7 years, 4 Bird Energy projects have reached commercialization stage, including a self-powered wireless sensor for monitoring energy use in buildings, a new enzyme to produce biodiesel, a utility-scale solar concentrated photovoltaic system that employs a new active cooling module, and a new system to facilitate wind speed and power output forecasting for wind generation. These are just some examples of projects that we have funded. The submission process, the first step starts with an executive summary that is a short document based on our template that you can find on our website. And if you can't find it, I'd be happy to send you the link. We highly recommend for companies to share the draft before the deadline, because we can provide feedback on the document itself. and provide support. A few days after the submission of the executive summaries, we return to companies with a go, no go recommendation. We advise companies if we recommend to submit the full proposal, or if we don't think they have good chances of winning the grant. We try to bring the success rate in the full proposal stage to about 40%. Sometimes it's a little bit more, 40 to 50. Sometimes, depending on how many applicants we have, it's 30 to 40. But we try to make it worthwhile for companies to sit down and write the full proposal. Then there's a proposal evaluation, and the decisions are made by the executive committee in November. So it's a pretty rapid process for a federally funded program. So the evaluation is done by reviewers from the relevant partners from DOE and the Israeli Ministry of Energy. In the general call for proposals, the reviewers are from NIST and the Israeli Innovation Authority. They look at, it is a competitive process, so they look at the innovation level, and they look for a very high level of innovation. That's the most important criteria. Then they look for synergy between the companies, that there is good complement technologies or challenging but good integration of one technology into the system of the other. And sometimes it can be a pilot project, especially in bird energy. They want to see that the companies can identify that there is a good market opportunity and quantify it. And finally, the partners demonstrate that they have a good commercialization strategy and know how to get to market. Sometimes these are two steps, but they need to show that they have access to market. So why do companies come to us? And in the case of bird energy, also universities and research organizations. Obviously, because of the funding, it helps for the project and the partnership. We are not a VC. We look for risky projects, and the funding is non-dilutive. We share the risks with a partner, which is crucially, especially with innovative, risky, and challenging projects. And we know that the participation in our process helps in raising funds and in commercialization. The joint commitment to the project and to bird accelerates time to market. Some companies working on a project that didn't have this commitment might decide that they have other priorities. In this case, it helps them get to the finish line. There is also one more very important aspect of participation in bird, and especially bird energy, and that is the validation by the DOE and the Israeli Ministry of Energy, and the stamp of approval of having your project reviewed by professional reviewers and being selected by our board of governors and the executive committees, who also issue a press release after the selection and announce their support and funding of the project. So here you can see a press release on the Department of Energy website. And this kind of recognition and PR is a huge benefit that companies and researchers really appreciate and want. So besides the funding, the $1 million per project, there is also this PR. You can see that the DOE mentioned in December 2021 that Bird Energy invested $5.48 million in clean energy projects. This is from the website, and we can see here, pointed in a green arrow, the project from Continuous Solution, from that Naya will be talking about in a few minutes, their project with EVR motors, And this is the press release from 2020. And from 2019, Polaris Energy Services with Netafim. David will talk about this in a minute. So as I said, we have a few options for you to submit. We have the general call for proposals, we have the Homeland Security, and of course this bird energy cycle in June. This is my contact information. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, if you need assistance in finding a partner. I'd be happy to help connect you to my partners. We are a very small organization, so we work closely with partners like Sharon, the CICC, the consulate. If we don't know of a partner, we reach out to them, and all of us together help in finding partners. We have a team in Tel Aviv, and I'd be happy to connect the Israeli listeners to them if you have not talked to them already. I have a colleague in the East Coast, Andrea Iona, who is responsible for the East Coast and the Midwest. And I have a partner in Texas who's responsible for the south of the US, Shiri Freundkorn. And I'll let the companies, the really interesting stories come up next. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, for that really deep introduction of the Bird Foundation and the entire call for companies. I do want to just remind our audience, as Maya just said, although we are here in California, there are, altogether there are 3 representatives of the Bird Foundation in the US. This call for companies is not just for companies coming from the West Coast. Obviously, all of, wherever you are in the US, you are entitled to submit your proposal for the Bird Foundation, and of course also in Israel. Also, as Maya mentioned, it doesn't matter if this is a smaller, a company which is more on the smaller side of the scale, or a big corporate. All of you are welcome to try and submit your proposals. And again, Maya and her team, whether in Israel or here in the US, and of course the different consulates around the US, the Israeli consulate, we are all here to support you. So if you have any questions, don't fear to ask us. I also want to remind our audience, as I see more people joined after my opening remarks, we do have the chat box. Please use it for your questions, and we will be very happy to answer any of your questions during this session. This is really for you to ask those. All right. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to David Myers. Thank you, David, for being with us. We were laughing earlier. David is already a veteran of the Bird Foundation, and we are all eager to hear about, of course, about your company, about your partner in Israel, which I guess most of our audience already know of, Netafim. And this is a great example to show how the Israeli side is North South, right? This is the bigger partner in this partnership, in this project, and of course, David and your team here in California. David, floor is yours. Tell us about it.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. And Sean had a great lead-in, which is that unlike the typical project where you picture some small, scrappy Israeli startup in Tel Aviv and some huge American corporate in St. Louis, we're the opposite. We're well, let's talk about Netafim first. They are the inventor of what's called drip irrigation, and now we talk more broadly about precision irrigation. Invented it about 60 years ago and grew into the world leader and about $1 billion company before being acquired by Orbia, a Mexican company, which is about $6 billion. So they're a part of a large global company with a global footprint and recognized leadership in this area of precision irrigation. And the one important thing about precision, well, not the one, most important thing is that it saves water so that you can grow more with less, as they say. But it does require a bunch of energy to provide that precision irrigation through drip systems, excuse me. And so, their overall goal is to not just provide these drip irrigation systems out in the field and all of the parts, the plastic and the valves and so on, but a broader platform to manage irrigation. And so they have a digital farming group which is dedicated to applying technology, not only hardware technology, but software and connected technology to this field of irrigation. And in general, their idea is to provide a platform, which means not just their own technology, but to enable all kinds of other technologies to join their platform, if you will, in different ways. So if you think of things like satellite imaging, artificial intelligence, that all of those can somehow connect with their system, which provides irrigation in the field. And that's my best pitch I can give for Netafim. I myself am CEO of Polaris Energy Services here in California. We are a small 10-person profitable company, and we are the leader in agricultural energy management. And so we, excuse me, I guess it's on auto, monitor and control a network of irrigation pumps here in California's Central Valley that are interconnected with the electrical grid and can provide services to the grid in exchange for revenue from the utilities, and also can be controlled to save money on energy costs while meeting farmers' operational requirements. We provide that interconnection, both the technology side and the business side, with the electrical grid. We recruit the customers, we manage all of the energy payments, and so on. And we have our own automation technology. And so where we met at the FEMA, if you will, is that we control down to a certain level of irrigation. We're not irrigation experts, but we are good at the communications and control, and especially, as you see at the top, that integration, oh gosh, sorry, it's on auto forward, with the energy markets. We take into account things like tariffs and prices and demand response events, and using all of the protocols out there to help manage irrigation. But there's a level of control that we don't do, getting into the agronomy and all of the things that the FIM does to make the irrigation more precise and deliver exactly what the grower needs. And so that was the opportunity to work together, was to integrate our connection with the electrical grid, electricity prices, demand response services, things like that, and help growers to develop irrigation schedules, which are then implemented in the field using the FIM's technology and a whole bunch of things that we don't get into, like fertilizer injection and timing of all sorts of sub-operations within the irrigation schedules. And so that is essentially our project, is that we are providing this energy knowledge scheduling that is responsive to prices, which, by the way, back to the point of renewables, the prices are now really reflecting when we have more renewable energy available, the prices go down. When the sun goes down, the prices go up. So all of this is helping to decarbonize the grid, make it more reliable, especially at those peak critical times. And so, essentially the project is our software working with the FIM's controller, which has its own onboard software out in the field, controls irrigation at a very granular level, informed by energy costs and opportunities. So I want to minimize that because I know, that's what we're working on. Everyone is working on something else. And so I'd love to answer the questions, probably showing that you have, to help people consider applying to BIRD and share our experience.
Thank you, David, for that. I think before we jump into those kind of questions about the process and your experiences, as I said, being the veteran on the call, of course, your tips for those that are now either considering or already in the process of applying. We would love to hear also from Naya about her experience, not like Polaris team and Netafim. Here we have a fairly new project that was approved recently, and I think this is all still fresh, being in that process. So Naya, I'd like to move to you and hear, first of all, a little bit about the companies and their joint project, and then we'll dive into the questions. I also see that we already have some questions in the Q&A, so we will address those too. Diane.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. All right. Yeah, so we teamed up with EVR. Can you see this?
Yes, we
okay.
can. Can you please put it on presentation mode? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so EVR and Continuous Solutions has a quite a bit of a history together, very loose history, but back in 2014, I traveled to Israel, and that was when I was first starting my company, Continuous Solutions. I decided to look around at the Israeli landscape in technology and discovered EVR was also starting their company, or had been for a couple of years. And they were in the same area, so electric motors, and trying to make it more efficient, cost effective, as well as power dense. And so we stayed in touch here and there, but then just last year, I was prompted to apply to the Bird Foundation by a colleague of mine that had also won an award in energy. And I was thinking about it, and I said, who do I know in Israel? So I chose EVR, wrote them an email asking them if they had heard about Bird Foundation, and asked to maybe have a meeting and talk about how we could work together. So what is Continuous Solutions? We are an electric motor, drives, and also testing facility for efficiency in covering land, sea, and aerospace applications for electric motors. We primarily work with the military in developing R&D projects and trying to get them to commercialization. Anyone who is a business owner knows that getting from R&D to commercialization is a huge feat. So discovering the Bird Foundation was really helpful in getting non-dilutive funding to promote our research and development and what we've already accomplished. So what we have done is taken a series of concepts all the way from simulation, design, build, and testing. We've been able to build out a 2,000 square foot lab space that's fully equipped to do testing all the way up to 200 horsepower. And here are some other little bullet points of what our lab can do, but that's not so interesting. What's interesting is the fact that we were able to partner with EVR through the Bird Foundation to further each other's research and development. So this is some other examples of our research capabilities. So what are we doing with EVR? So EVR has created a very power dense electric motor, but they're using antiquated technology for the controls of this motor. Continuous Solutions has, through the SBIR, which is a small business initiative, industrial research and development contract through the DoD, Department of Defense, has started the groundwork for power dense controls. And we are exploring gallium nitride as the basis for the inverter, which provides a very small and condensed and integrated controller for the motor. So the innovation is the integration of this controller with EVR's power dense electric motor. And so our project is to integrate these two and to get it to market as soon as possible. The cooperation is that we are working together to develop a final product. EVR is going to own the intellectual property on the electric motor technology. Continuous Solutions will own the intellectual property on the inverter technology. And we did this very, consciously, is that we want to make sure that EVR is controlling the production of the motor side, and CS, or Continuous Solutions, is the production on the inverter side. And the integration of the two products are going to be done with the EVR team, since we're tailoring it to their motor. EVR is a little bit further down the pathway of commercialization than continuous solutions. So they already have a team of people who are bringing their product to market, which is an excellent situation for continuous solutions because it reduces the amount of steps that we need to take as a company if we already have a partnership with EVR in going towards commercialization. That's an advantage for our team. And yeah, so both of us are promoting this technology. We're also going to be doing marketing and sales. EVR is leading it with their partnership with an Indian company and to implement this technology in two-wheeled and three-wheeled vehicles. So before we started even thinking about the project, we both gave each other presentations on our capabilities to making sure that it's a good fit. So we started the process last April in engagement of discussions. They presented to us, we presented to them. And then we said, you know what, let's just try to put the executive summary together for the June deadline. But let's think about what it's going to look like, 2 years from now, our engagement. And so we came up with a project Gantt chart on how we could engage, being at different time zones, in different continents, how we can bring our team together. And so working from a skeleton Gantt chart, we could fill in the gaps of our project. And so this is an example, right? We have the CS effort, we have the EVR efforts that's delineated in this Gantt chart, and then the combined effort together. Our engagement with EVR is weekly. So every Monday, early in the morning, we get together with the EVR technical team, CS technical team, gets together and presents some of the progress that we've made, and then also where we're headed as well. So I think that's the last slide, but yeah, so I'm headed to Israel in about 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and I will meet them in person, the EVR team. And also we have a couple of other suppliers for the inverter that I'll go and meet and get a tour of their facility and really just kind of integrate into the Israel landscape. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Naya, for that and for sharing your presentation. By the way, for our audience, these slides are part of the actual proposal, right, that you submitted to the Bird Foundation. So you all can see how the slides are being constructed, what kind of information is out there. And for those of you who've been presenting and pitching your projects for a long time, you'll see there's nothing really different than things that you already know how to submit. So these slides were a great example of an actual presentation for the Bird Foundation by applicants. All right, thank you so much, David and Naya, for sharing that kind of information. Naya, you just answered my question about how did you find your partner. David, I wanted to ask you, obviously Netafim's name is around the world. How did you decide to approach, such a big company, and what were your thoughts and hopes about that? And did anyone help you approaching the right person within Netafim and pitch this kind of collaboration?
Sure, thanks. So as you said, Netafim is well known here in California. If you drive down to the Central Valley, they have a billboard, which is kind of striking if you come from Israel and see a homegrown company with a billboard in Los Banos or someplace like that. So the company was well known. We did approach them through Israeli contacts and actually did one project together before Bird. But what Bird really helped us to do was to galvanize around a shared roadmap and a shared vision of what we could do together, because a single project ends and you don't necessarily have a follow-up, even though we, especially as the smaller company, would really like that. So we made the initial contact, but getting into the funnel, if you will, of BIRD really helped to provide a framework for what we were going to do together. Information sharing in order to develop the proposal helps you to learn a lot. And so, in all of that case, it was either, the BIRD people, specifically meeting with Maya and Eitan, but also just the process itself, the things that you need to do help you to answer a lot of questions with your partner to figure out what that partnership looks like.
Thank you for that. And I have another question, since you mentioned the fact that you are a smaller, the smaller partner in this partnership. Obviously, the money is very important. Winning the grant is important. It channel funds to do the actual R&D. What else did you gain from this kind of experience and collaboration? Is it just the money?
No, and looking back, as we said, now I'm a veteran. I'm a reservist in BIRD, but I would say that the money is actually the least important part of it. You end up putting a lot of effort in, and if you put dollars per hour, you're going to invest one way or another that much money. It really is the structuring of the partnership, putting a framework around time and around scope. I'm not a chemist, but if you think about it, you have two companies, you have to have a chemical reaction. BIRD is a catalyst. It's not one of the chemicals in the reaction, but it's a catalyst that can make that reaction happen. And if you don't have that chemistry, it won't work with the money. But to your point about a big company with a lot of priorities, without this, there would not have been a deadline. And so all of the work that we did to explore this product, even if we had gone forward, there's nothing that would have said it had to be in on August 15th. And so that could have gone on and on because there are other priorities. So having the deadline, some of the
BIRD Foundation and all the partners also invest a lot in PR around those projects and the companies that actually win the different grants. So I guess that also there is the PR, the branding that the participants also gain out of it. Another last question for you, if I may, David, is if you were to start again, and I guess the people that are now online with us, the listeners, our audience, it's probably for some of them maybe the first time they hear about the BIRD Foundation, maybe they heard about it before and they would like to get some more information. What would be your advice to them?
Well, the first thing I'd say, Maya made a point that she's available to speak as her partners. I have done a lot of other grant proposals where you can't speak with anybody. It's a very restricted process because they're afraid of giving anybody information that might help them succeed. And so even if you have a simple question, you can't get it answered. Here, it's kind of the opposite. I think they give you can say the reason, but provide information to help you succeed. And I assume that's provided to anybody who comes to them. But that way, if the project doesn't look like it has a good chance of success, you're going to get some feedback, or if there's a missing piece or what you should do within the process. So I think having that conversation early with the representatives, even before the executive summary, you can get some sense of where this fits into the BIRD world. The other thing I would say is if you have some reasonable confidence in the project, of course, everyone wants to win. I didn't know it was, I think that keeping it to 40% is considerate of the companies so that, you're not spending time that you don't have a decent chance of winning. But even the process itself has value. Again, if there's a valuable partnership that's worth doing BIRD, it's probably worth doing without BIRD. And if we had everything that we did to prepare the application and then didn't win, I would like to think that we would have gone forward anyway, because we'd already established, here's the commercial opportunity, here are the technical gaps that each has. And so at that point, okay, so you need to go find a little bit of money, that's fine, but you've done a lot of work to establish that business opportunity one way or the other. So if you think there's a good opportunity, I would advise going through that process because it will be valuable, either to disqualify an opportunity to say, yeah, this is someone we want to work with, And if we get bird, that's the best. But if not, we're going to keep going together anyway.
Perfect. Thank you for that, David. And I'd like to ask Naya now a question. So, you know, Naya, when you presented earlier, it sounded like you heard about the Bird Foundation, you approached a company in Israel, they said yes, you submitted, you won. Very easy and smooth process. Can you share a little bit more information? Was it really that smooth? Do you have any advice for companies that consider, you know, if you could do things a little bit different, or what worked for you, what went really well? And if it was really smooth, then everybody should do it, right?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work setting up the meetings. You know, some days I was up at 3 a.m. for the actual presentation to the Bird Foundation. Me and my other team member were up at 3 a.m. to give an 80-slide presentation. The time was, I think, like 3 or 4 hours. So it's labor intensive, right? It's also attention to detail. It's also having a vision and following through with it and believing in the vision with EVR and having joint participation in the vision of how you are going to interact. So it was, you know, I'm a forever optimist, so I can look back and think it was all worth it when I win. And if I don't, and if I don't win, then, you know, I forget about it pretty fast. And so yeah, so I mean, I think that, you know, having the team that I have at Continuous Solutions who are willing to put in the time and the effort outside of the normal 9 to 5 working hours to make sure that this project is a success is you know, it's an intense process. We also went back and forth and many edits on the proposal. So yeah, I think that what I would do differently is probably a couple of things. Probably making sure that you know, there is an outline that we can look at outside of each other's normal working hours, so we're not having to meet you know, at 6 a.m. Israeli time or 4 a.m. Pacific time. Maybe work with our schedules a little bit easier. But again, you need to build trust with the company that you're partnering with. And in order to build the rapport and the trust, I believe that face-to-face interaction is the best. And what we have right now is Skype. So that was important for me in terms of getting FaceTime with the partners.
Fantastic. So it sounds like beside the actual grant money and the process, you were also able to learn a little bit about, you know, internal processes and grow internally. So both of you mentioned, of course, the support from the Bird Foundation, and thank you, Maya, for sharing your email in the chat box. So if anybody would like to speak with Maya, or if you are based in other parts of the US, you'd like to meet with Maya's counterparts, her colleagues, feel free to send an email to Maya. Again, her email is in the chat box. It's mayav@birdf.com. And Maya will be very happy to answer your questions. Being minded of the time, Maya, some last remarks maybe?
So I was while listening to David and remembering our first meeting back in 2016. So I think that it is so important to be able to talk, to meet, hopefully meet in person, but if not, of course, we have video conference, and to learn about what the companies do, answer questions about the bird process. If in this case, David already had an idea about a partner, so this worked well. But if not, I'd be happy to learn about your company, about the complementary technologies you're looking for in a partner, and then try to scout for you on your behalf some interesting partners. So please reach out to us. We have an eager team willing to help, and great partners. Thank you so much, Sharon, for your partnership. The California-Israel Chamber of Commerce is doing an amazing work, helping companies in California contact and work with Israeli partners, and is helping Israeli companies to do the same in California. And thank you, Shlomi, and the consulate team for your continuous support and help throughout the years. Really, the Bird team could not have done it without you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya. And really, the consulate is a nexus between government and the industry. Support many of those initiatives. Shlomi, some last remarks maybe before we conclude this session.
Thank you, Sharon, and it was fantastic. Naya and David, thank you for sharing your your experience, your insights, and your good advices, which are, there is nothing like experience. It's probably the best value you can provide, and the best and the value for Bird and for the and for potential partners. And just thank you all for being here. Maya, thank you for keep bringing companies together, and Sharon, keep doing a good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shlomi, for your kind words. Again, some people asked me about the recording. As you heard, this session was recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel. We can also probably send you an email with a link for that if you want. Don't hesitate to let us know. Again, being conscious of the time, thank you so much for our speakers. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you, Maya, for sharing more insight about the call for proposals and the way the Bird Foundation is supporting the energy industry, among others. Really appreciate all of you being here with us today. Thank you for our audience, wherever you are, if you are in Israel or around the US or some other places around the world. Be safe. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.